pursue or not to pursue. President Obama sums up this talk by saying, quote, "It's not too late to change course, but only if we take immediate and dramatic action. Our first job is to put people back to work and get our economy working again." Unquote. Therefore, our central economic planners must take immediate and dramatic action. And notice by reviving the economy, unquote, he really means to just create jobs. In the Romer-Bernstein paper that President Obama references, which I have listed here, they claim that they'll be able to create 3.3 to 4.0 million jobs by the fourth quarter of 2010. So maybe by when some of you have actually graduated. This is the types of jobs, this is the number of jobs that they plan to have. Right now, I checked today on recovery.gov, and we're in Q4 of 2009. This stimulus started, pretty much the end of quarter one, quarter two. So far, they claim that 30,383 jobs have been created or saved per recovery.gov. So in other words, they've still got another 3.27 million jobs to go. This is a screenshot taken from recovery.gov, and what I want to point out. What I want to point out over here is our area as well. But what we have here is $2 billion has been awarded to Pennsylvania out of the $787 billion. It has created 595.2 jobs. And if you notice, what we have here in Allentown, we've been allotted and assigned $2.42 million. Most of it to the cities of Bethlehem and Allentown. $0 have been reported spent, and 0 jobs have been reported as created or saved in our congressional district. Now, I want to point out something that actually when I put this slide together I didn't quite notice, but when I was looking at it later, you see like this big blob down here? This is pretty much where Washington, D.C. is. So, and again, each of these green dots is just basically they've approved spending in this particular area. So, as you can see, there's not a whole lot around in Pennsylvania, and when you get down to D.C., you have quite a few. Okay, now I could spend another talk demonstrating that the employment numbers and the GDP math from the government are pretty questionable. But let's take note of the part of Romer's report where the central planners have estimated the job growth in each sector from the funds they plan to distribute to the nearest 1,000. So again, how do these, and this type of thinking is called Keynesian, how do these Keynesian economists know what our economy should look like in 2 years? How do they know that we need 50,000 information jobs? How do they know we need 26,000 mining jobs? And I assure you, how do they know that this industry has more than the other industry? And I assure you that they really don't have a clue. And as I will shortly demonstrate, they don't even know how to make a pencil. In the nation's planned economy, what is the number one priority? Per change.gov, the bold title is Immediate Action to Create Good Jobs in America. This is followed by number 2, Relief for Struggling Families, for which I sympathize, although a lot of this aid will simply be made necessary by the unavoidable ineptitude of the central planners. Next on the list is number 3, Direct Immediate Assistance for Homeowners, not a bailout for irresponsible mortgage lenders. Now, these homeowners did make a conscious decision to sign a mortgage, and they will benefit at the cost of taxpayers who do not own a home. Although this might be a little bit less objectionable than giving money to banks and auto companies. Also, the central planners will need to decide which mortgage lenders are, quote, responsible and irresponsible or partly responsible. However, so far, not a word about what actually matters. In other words, full production. This is reserved for number 4, where, quote, a rapid, aggressive response to our financial crisis using all the tools we have, unquote. In other words, we're just going to try like crazy to spend our way out of this. In the subsection entitled Manufacturing and Green Jobs, we finally see that the government simply plans to create a hodgepodge of different funds staffed by bureaucrats who will dispense funding at their whims to successful applicants, to these bureaucrats. A bonanza for big government and corporate corruption, but really a disaster for the free market and the full production that it could provide. 3 of the 5 bullets are devoted to clean technology and environmental jobs, which will create, quote, 5 million new green jobs, unquote. And, as I stated before, they've so far in almost a year, they've been able to create 30,000 jobs. And, it doesn't matter, 3, 4, 5, 6 million jobs, whatever. Really all these central planners need is cash, and they can churn out good, well-paying jobs better than any private company ever could, right? I mean, it's that easy. Well, just for curiosity, the price tag of $787 billion, which is really $1.1 trillion once you factor in the interest on the debt that needs to be serviced. And really strangely, in their January 2009 report, Romers and Bernstein forgot to provide a price tag, but this is probably because they could not really estimate how much pork Congress would need to actually pass it. Again, they prophesized that we'd have, up here again, 3.6 million jobs in 2 years, and actually their margin of error was plus or minus 500,000 jobs. Whatever. But what that works out to is $214,150 per job created. Now, of course, the intent is to use some of these funds to buy capital, namely manufacturing equipment and raw material supplies. But if we do a little math, we could just cut an $80,000 check to 10 million people, and who are unemployed, and with a frugal lifestyle, they could get by for a couple of years. And and actually that's the thing, and they project that the Depression will end in a couple of years. But make no mistake, by focusing this Keynesian stimulus plan on creating jobs, in reality the entire $787 billion will be wasted on paying for government officials to disperse the bailout and incredible inefficiencies. In reality, as I wrote in January, the plan will likely create and sustain higher levels of unemployment right now, just like FDR's New Deal did. Let's take a look and compare with the unemployment rates from the Great Depression. Here are the unemployment rates from 1930 to 1941. You can see after 1931 we hit 16%, and it remained up near 20% for a few years and came down. And the unemployment rate, as you notice, dropped off in 1941, which was, of course, Pearl Harbor. And the soldiers in the army, they weren't producing goods, but they were counted as employed. So you can't really use the numbers after that period. So now let's look at today. And what we have on this chart, which is from shadowstats.com, is the government number, which is their official, what's called the U3 unemployment matrix. This is the one that you see in the papers all the time. It's about 9.8, 9.9, kind of like going out of business sale. It's about 10%. On the gray line on top of it is also from the government, from BLS.gov. This is called their U6 metric, which is basically their most encompassing metric for unemployment. But in reality, what the government doesn't do is they do a lot of strange things. Like, for instance, if you're out of work for a year, they just write you off as a discouraged worker and drop you off from the working pool. And that's just one of the many kind of machinations that they do. And shadowstats.com actually estimates that the unemployment rate is about 21 going on 22%. And now in reality, probably the true unemployment ratio is somewhere in this region, around 18 or 20%, but that's actually where our economy is at right now. Okay, next is a few essays since Hazlitt's work have been more beautifully expressed than the intricacies of economies in Leonard Read's essay, very short essay, it's about 5 or 6 pages, called I, Pencil, which I encourage you to read. In this essay, Leonard Read takes a simple object and tracks its production from start to end. And you may be very surprised to find that there's thousands of people that are involved in the commercial process.